All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is Kris Mukherji with the Law Office of Kris Mukherji. This is my first series, first video in the series of videos I'm going to be doing, speaking with experts in different areas. I have the pleasure of having Darin Triolo of Triolo Realty Group with us today. And Darin is a realtor for the last 17, has been practicing in the field for the last 17 years. He's a 5-star San Diego agent from 2002 to 2020. He's been endorsed by Dave Ramsey as a San Diego expert in real estate. He's currently ranked in the top 150 out of 30,000 realtors by the MLS for San Diego County. And you can find Darin on the American Dream TV show, which airs on Fox 5 on Sundays, and on Thursday nights on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Is that correct, Darin?
That is awesome. How you doing, Kris?
Hey, thanks for being on my first show. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
I wish we could do this in person, but, you know, with social distancing and doing the right thing, it's the best way to get out there. And I definitely want my clients, the people out there, to get to know you and meet you and, you know, tell us more about what's going on in the real estate market, obviously, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, I could talk to you about real estate all day long. I can talk to you about what's going on in California, in the U.S., all over the place. But we live in San Diego.
Yep.
So, you know, to get straight to the point, give me your breakdown right now on the San Diego real estate market.
So I'll give you kind of the macro view. So the macro San Diego County view of real estate. Right now in San Diego County, we actually have very, very low inventory, which is been a little bit counterintuitive. I think a lot of people thought when COVID was labeled as a pandemic that we were going to see a lot of people putting their homes on the market and the market potentially kind of swinging the other direction. And actually quite the opposite. We actually have fewer homes for sale right now. We only have 4,200 homes for sale in the entire county. And just to give you some perspective, back in 2008, we had 22,000 homes for sale. So massive supply, low demand, market crashed really, you know, and we could get into, you know, an hour-long conversation around that. But right now what we're seeing is some of the lowest inventory we've had in the last 20 years. And that's kind of the San Diego macro market. There's about a month and a half of inventory in the entire county. What that means is that if nothing new came on the market for sale at the current rate homes are selling, everything would be sold in a month and a half. So it's very fast.
Let me ask you this question. You keep hearing the terms, people talk about buyer's market and seller's market.
Yes.
How does that, first of all, explain that to the people watching. What exactly does that mean? And how does that relate to us in San Diego today? Yeah,
absolutely. It's a great question. So a buyer's market is when the buyers have more leverage. The buyers are the ones dictating the shots. They're negotiating. Conversely, a seller's market is when the sellers have all of the power. They're basically dictating the price that they're selling. And there's so many offers that sometimes they're getting at or even above what they're asking for the property. So when we look at 1.5 months of inventory, kind of the fulcrum of a buyer or a seller's market is when there's 5 or 6 months of inventory. We're at 1.5 months. That's a balanced market where buyers and sellers have equal power. We're at 1.5 months of inventory. That is a deep seller's market. So sellers have a lot of the power in the current market that we're in. When we're at 7, 8, 9 months of inventory, that's when buyers have more negotiating power. Going back to 2008, when we had 22,000 homes for sale, we had 22 months of inventory. So remember, balanced market is 5 or 6 months of inventory. 22 months of inventory was when the buyers, if you remember real estate in 2008, 9, 10, tons of homes for sale. Sellers were offering all sorts of credits, anything and everything to a buyer to get them to buy their home, dropping the price, offering credits. We are so far from that market right now. The county is very much responding, again, macro across all price points, very much as a seller's market.
But so what does that mean in reference to, you know, high-end luxury markets versus, you know, low-end markets? Is there a difference whether one is in a buyer's market right now and one is in the seller's market right now?
Yes. Yeah. In fact, the luxury market, when we say luxury, I would say like 2.5 million and higher. There's actually a great deal of inventory throughout the county. And that market, there's about, we'll take like La Jolla as an example, right? A high-end luxury community. Above 2.5 million, there's 7.5 months of inventory for a detached home. So it's in a buyer's market, actually, in La Jolla, over 2.5 million. When you drop down below 2 million, I know that sounds crazy. We're talking about big numbers here, but below 2 million, there's actually 2.5 months of inventory. So that's in a seller's market. So in one zip code, you have this phenomenon where there's actually a seller's market and a buyer's market at exactly the same time.
Interesting. So, when people talk about buyers and sellers market, it's not necessarily controlled by the time or the month or the week. It could be simply based on a zip code or even within that same zip code. You can have
right.
a buyer's market in La Jolla in 92037 and a seller's market at the same time. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Yeah. And that's where a lot of clients, get confused because they hear in the media like, oh, there are tons and tons of homes are coming on the market, nationwide, right? But we're here, San Diego, we're not experiencing that. And so what we're seeing is that the higher end markets of each sub-market, so like each micro market, like La Jolla, for instance, the higher end markets have a lot more inventory and the prices are a little bit softer there, right? Buyers have a little bit more negotiating room. But as soon as you start getting down into more affordable price ranges, the market is actually very intense with, multiple offers. Values are actually slowly ticking up, even amidst this pandemic that's going on.
So what is it like for sellers out there? I mean, are sellers getting bunch of offers, or is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, and it depends on the price point and the location. So when we look at, let's say, under $1 million in a lot of the markets in San Diego, that would be considered, as crazy as that sounds, more affordable. That under $1 million market, we're seeing properties just fly off the market. We just listed a home in Mira Mesa, straightforward home. We listed at $725,000, which was right around where we felt the market value was. We had 22 offers.
Wow.
In a week, and it sold for $50,000 above the list price. And so in those markets, there's just not enough for people to buy. So what you have is all of these buyers that are offering on the only properties that are available and competing and driving the price up. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, there are homes that are at, 2.5, 3 million, or let's just we'll pick Claremont as an example. Once you start getting up into like 800,000 to 900,000, not Bay Park, not homes with ocean views and that kind of stuff, but just your classic mid-century 1950s, 60s homes. When you start getting into that 800,000 to 900,000 market, it's taking longer for them to sell. There's not as many offers. But boy, you drop down into that under 700K market and things, again, multiple offers flying off the market.
So let me ask you a question. As somebody who's thinking about obviously selling, and you and I have talked about this in the past, where does that put me? And obviously I understand I may be in a seller's market to sell the place, but if I want to turn around and buy a place at that time, am I going to have a hard time with this? What kind of strategy do you recommend somebody like me should utilize?
Yeah. So when we have clients that are trying to sell and buy, what we try and do is identify the market that they're selling in. Is it a buyer or a seller's market? And what's the market that they're buying in? Is it a buyer or a seller's market? Sometimes it's the same. Sometimes it's different, right? If you're trying to sell a home and move into a market, let's say move up into another market, and there's still very low inventory there as well, typically what we recommend is we need to try and start sourcing inventory in that purchase market while we actively have the home that needs to be sold on the market. Because when you think about it, if you're selling and buying, the seller of this home needs to know that the home that you're selling in order to buy their home is going to sell.
That's correct.
So the best way for them to understand that is if that home's on the market when that offer is made on the home that's looking to be purchased. Now, there's also ways where we can find off-market inventory and get creative. And what's really interesting about this COVID market is that we know there are many sellers that would love to sell that have chosen not to put their home on the market because they don't want people coming through their home and potentially bringing virus into their home, people that are concerned about the health, obvious health concerns, but they would willingly sell their home to someone that was willing to pay them a good price. And so if we can go find some of those opportunities for our clients, the likelihood is that seller will be a little bit more flexible to give us the time to sell the home that needs to be sold because they've got a guaranteed buyer to move into their place, and they don't have to worry about a million other people coming through their home.
So what are you and your team doing in a situation like this, where you're looking at sellers that are in a market where they can sell the place? How are you and your team approaching it from them becoming buyers at some point? What are you doing to help them get in these places that's different than anybody else?
Yep. Yeah. So we have a lot of software that we use on our team. So we do a ton of telemarketing. Where we're able to get phone numbers for a ton of people in the neighborhood. We also send out mailers. We send out letters to homeowners. And when we have an actual buyer, We share some of the personality of the buyer, put a family photo, create a little bit of that emotional attachment. Because the truth is, if you're sitting at home and you get a letter and you have zero interest in selling, you're going to take that letter and throw it in the trash, right? You might not even open it.
All the
But
time.
if you have a little inkling that you might be interested in selling, and you get a letter that's very well crafted, that has a photo of an actual buyer, it's not just someone, Joe Smith wants to buy a home, the likelihood is you'll reach out in some capacity and at least call to find out if it's real, right? And
Sure.
so we have a letter that we've crafted over the years of me being in the business that's very effective for those types of homeowners, where we'll get the call that says, "Oh, it's Darin. You actually are a real person. Tell me a little bit about your client. Are they real?" And then we can get into a more direct conversation around, yes, they're real. Here's all about them. They're qualified. This is why we're doing it this way. Is there a benefit for you to consider us as a buyer? And can we come tour your house? Let's start with a tour. No commitment. Let's just make sure that if you're open to it and they're open to it, let's see if the house is the right fit. And then we can.
What if they aren't open to it? Is there an option of a virtual tour of some sorts?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we can do. We do a lot of virtual tours. We do Facebook live tours. We do, anything and everything. Technologically, we have the ability to pretty much. It's kind of interesting, actually. They bring that up. We've sold homes where our clients actually never set foot in the home, not because of the current pandemic, but we've worked with a lot of military clients that are deployed. And they've never set foot in the home, but we give them video tours, we give them 3D tours of the house, and then they make their decisions based off that.
Right. Very nice. Hey, Darin, I greatly appreciate your time. Obviously, this was a wealth of information. What if somebody wants to contact you? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they can reach me through our website, which is triolorealty.com. They can reach me on one of our team phone numbers, which is 858-206-8000. Or email me, Darin@triolorealty.com.
And you know what? I'm going to put that information at the bottom of this video as well. So if people want to contact you, they know exactly how to get a hold of you. Darin,
Awesome.
Thanks a lot, man. You're awesome. I've known you for the last 7 years. You've been a wealth of information for me and my clients. As always, I greatly appreciate that. Thanks for taking the time. And best of luck, my friend.
Thank you so much, Kris.